Maybe we can change a little bit the focus of the conversation to deal with different aspects on the energy sector that are particularly of your interest and particularly of the interest of the company that you manage. So the first thing that I want to touch with you and to discuss with you is on the supply business and the dynamics for the supply business. There has been obviously a difficult environment for consumers and I guess for companies managing the supply business as a consequence of the different geopolitical issues. So how do you think companies are adapting their commercial strategies to better cope with all this volatility?
Well, surely, as also Agostino said, the supply in Italy changed a little bit because for 20 years the gas from Russia was the mainstream, let's say also easy, good prices, incredible stability of the price. Now, in a couple of years, we needs to change everything, and GNL now is a part of the supply completely key. So the differences is, if you look at a company like A2A, for example, that now is possible to trade the GNL in a more large way from US to Qatar to other markets, and I think that is fundamental for to come back a new stability, because in this moment the relation with Algeria, Azerbaijan is fundamental, but our countries, once again, are not surely completely stable if you look in the future. So due to the big investment and works did by Snam, with the regasificator in Ravenna, Piombino, and so on, now we are able to imagine to have a market share for GNL very important, and also we are working to move in this direction. That means that I think that in particular when will arrive a new regasificator or liquefator in North America and other countries, so in the next 12 months, I imagine that also for the price of gas worldwide, we can come back to a new stability. This is the mix. The lesson learned, Xavier, is that we have to increase absolutely our energy autonomy, because when I think to Italy, Italy is the third country in Europe for potentially renewable, Norway, France, and Italy. So the third in 27 is not bad. But today, our energy autonomy is 23%, more or less. It's impossible to arrive to 100% with renewable, but we can grow a lot. So I think that we can arrive to 60%, and we have to do it, because in this landscape, energy autonomy for us remain completely key, and we have only water, wind, sun, and waste. So we have to use absolutely our raw material for energy production as more as possible.
One of the key strategical decisions that you have been taking during your mandate at A2A has been more focus on the electricity distribution network. You have made some significant deals on the sector, and you have been very advocating the idea that electricity distribution networks are going to be critical for the energy evolution in Italy and Europe as well. So from that perspective, can you comment on the discussion, the regulatory discussion in Italy on the extension of the electricity distribution concessions, the implication for a company like A2A, and what do you think would be a constructive proposal?
I fully understand the position of Stefano and our ARERA body, but from the other point of view, I think that it's clear that the distribution grid, to do a parallel, our hydro plants are completely strategic for the countries, and I can't understand how it's possible to imagine tenders in Europe or in the world without reciprocity. And in this moment, I don't see any other tenders for power grid in Europe. So I think that the topic of extension has to face two problems. One is this one, reciprocity. The other is that in this moment, the average age of our network, transformers, grid and so on, is 50 years in Italy. So is a big problem, because the forecast for consumption is 27 consumption more in the next 10 years, 15 years. Also because we have to decarbonize them, and so we need absolutely to push much more investment. And if you look statistically, the investment, the capex for single pod in the last 5 years in Italy, you can understand that it is absolutely impossible to face the electrification and decarbonization with this level of capex. So the solution is not to stay for 5 years to discuss to tender, because tender 2030 means 5 years of works discussion, lower investment and so on, waiting for tenders, and to decide immediately to put on the table extraordinary plans. So I fully agreed with Stefano that we need really extraordinary capex. So it's not possible to ask extension of concession with the ordinary capex. About the timing, in this moment the law says 20, ARERA says also 10 can works. So for us, I don't know which will be the final position, but is a floor of 10 and a cap of 20. We'll see. I think that if we really want to have extraordinary capex, we need also a longer time to amortize this capex. But once again, I think that the single goal that is completely key is absolutely to increase the capex. Because if we don't, the problem is not to be able to face the increasing of electrification, but not to be able to manage the situation also like today. Because with transformers of 70, 80, 100 years, is not possible to manage the electrical grid, of course.
A2A is also a large generation company in Italy. So I'm interested in your view on two different aspects on the energy sector. One is the role of the CCGT plants because of the volatility introduced by renewable energies into the system. My perception is that the relative value of CCGT plants is going to go on the way up, because it is perceived as a technology that provides with plenty of flexibility. If you agree with that argument, and you see CCGT plants as strategical for the proper functioning of the Italian generation system in the next year to come. And the second question is on the hydro concessions. Obviously, there is a big debate that has to do with the extension of those concessions. What do you believe is the likely outcome that investors should expect, and the timing for that decision?
The historical energy mix in Italy was hydro plants and CCGT. Now we have also the role of renewable that is key. So it's clear that considering that is a country without nuclear, and in my personal opinion we remain without nuclear, the role of CCGT will remain key for flexibility. And also, let's say, for to be able to reduce the price of energy, because the simple formula, price for megawatt hours of gas for 2 more cost of CO2 is a formula that in this moment probably 50% of Italians knows, but is linked to a thermal plant with 50% of efficiency. Now, that is the average level of our historical fleet. But for example, we are building a new thermal plant in Monfalcone. No? We phase out the coal, and there is under construction a new thermal plant, a new CGT. The efficiency will be 63%. So the formula is not gas for 2 more CO2, but is gas for 1.6 more CO2. So that means that this single plant, that is a huge plant, more or less 1 gigawatt, will be able to produce with gas with a price probably 20 euros per megawatt hours lower than the actual price. This is a topic because there is not only my plants under construction, but in Italy there are 5-6 plants of this dimension. That means 5 gigawatt of new capacity, very efficient, with and consider that is also a plant able to work in blending with hydrogen. So if in the life will arrive also hydrogen, can reduce once again the cost of CO2 and so on. So I think that a mix between gas, hydro, and renewable will be the solution for Italy. Personally, I think that also some import is not a topic. We are in Europe, so if you look at our market, the fact that Terna is working for the connection with Tunisia, or we are connected with France, Montenegro, Austria, and so on, is exactly to have exchange of energy. And so I think that this is fundamental. Coming back to hydro concession, is not any EU rules. Is a deal between, inside the PNRR, between the Italian government and EU. Minister Foti said that the discussion is open and the idea of the government is not to do tenders, once again, exactly for reciprocity. I think that at the end we'll arrive there. Also because it's very difficult to do tender. In this moment, in Region Lombardy, there is a super peanuts tender, also for us. The problem is that when you discuss about investment in hydro plant with dam and so on, it's really very complex because your creativity can be huge. So imagine to be the regulator that receive, like in this case, if I were a member, 7 different projects from players during the tender. Every project is different, and you have to check with all the stakeholders, with the conference of services, if can be built or not. It's very difficult to decide it in advance who is the best project if you don't. If you are not able to check up front the feasibility of this project. So what happened in concrete during this tender? That Region Lombardy opened 7 different conference of services for every project before to decide the point of. You imagine that typically it takes 1 year for one conference of services. Imagine to manage a cinema like this. So I think that is really very complex, guys, and I think that once again, in this moment, our goal is energy autonomy, to be able to increase the production for hydro from 48 average level for the last 10 years to 60, but it's possible. No? The hydro production is the king of the renewable because it's flexible, and we have not to waste time in other activity.
There are two big things. One, you anticipated your views, is the future of nuclear generation in Italy, if you think that may be impacting the system significantly anytime soon. And the second theme is new battery system. There is several consultation documents and decisions in Italy and other European countries on new battery system, maybe as a way of smoothing the impact of volatility related to renewables energies into the system. So how do you see these two debates evolving, nuclear and then batteries?
About nuclear, my position is this one. If the nuclear technology is APR, the last two plants built by EDF, Flamanville and Hinkley Point, are visible, 200 euros for megawatt hours of production, 15 years to build it, and so on. So I don't think that is the solution. And probably also the fact that Luc Rémont resigned from EDF is linked to this particular situation, because you know that in France there are some reactors that have to phase out, you have to build one, but if you have to sell energy to 60 euros for megawatt hour and you have to produce with plants with 200, is a little bit complicated. Or the government decided to give you a lot of money, but Macron in this moment don't said anything about, or the algorithm don't work. From the other side, a small-scale reactor, everyone talk about small-scale reactor. In this moment, every company that is working for SMR or AMR says that it's possible to stay under 100 euros for megawatt hours. That can be fantastic for a plant like this if the production is base load with 70 years of amortization. That means that if a company like A2A, imagine coming back to nuclear, we come back to an oligopoly. So fantastic, because in Italy, for example, companies able to build and manage plant like this are in one end, Enel, A2A, Edison, I don't know, a few others. So coming back from the democracy of renewable to the oligopoly of nuclear, no, can be fine. The problem is that simply the risk is market risk for 60, 70 years. Okay, you can imagine to have a decree, nuke X, in which the GSE buy the energy for 16 years. Frankly speaking, is a little bit difficult, but maybe. If we'll see a decree to buy, to be able to cover the market risk for this kind of plant for 16 years, for companies remains only the industrial risk. That is another risk huge, because are plants never seen in the world, in which to come back with your capex, so 1-2 billion for 200 megawatt of power, the plant must run for 70 years. So I simply say that is a situation in which I can see which is the company that decided to invest in a technology that asks 60, 70 years to come back like investment, to come back like IRR. For market risk and industrial risk. So battery is completely different. Batteries is not a bottleneck. You remember a couple of years ago, 5 years ago, all says battery will be a bottleneck because there are not enough raw material and so on. In 2020, the total production of battery worldwide was less than 300 terawatt hours, sorry. Today is 1,300 and is expected to arrive to 6,000 terawatt hours in 2030. The cost of battery fall down from 1,000 more to 100 euros for kilowatt hours, and the raw material is demonstrated that is not a topic. The problem is, once again, our energy autonomy. And simply I said that we need to work in recycling, exactly like in steel, in paper, and so on. Is the typical experience that we had in Italy. You know? Italy is a fantastic country because is one of the most important industrial countries in the world, and there is a ranking with the World Bank for GDP linked to the raw material. No? The first in the ranking is Libya, 60% of GDP linked to raw material. In Italy, the GDP linked to raw material is 0.1, so 0. And we are a super industrial country, one of the most important producers of steel in the history, of paper and so on, completely without raw material, or simply with recycling. So when I bought a Tesla some years ago, if someone asked about why you decided to buy an electrical car, I said simply because I want to import in Italy lithium, cobalt, and nickel. So the problem now is to build the plant for recycling. You said that we can arrive to 90% of recycling with this key raw material, and we have to do it. So I think that we can arrive also in this sector without problems to have our mind.
I cannot refrain because of your teaching at the university, and you have been advocating the introduction of e-mobility. So the question for you is, which are the concrete steps you think should be taken to overcome the current and existing barriers to the implementation of e-mobility and widespread adoption both in Italy and the rest of Europe?
Consider, Xavier, that some weeks ago I said to my students that if the SUV fleet in the world were a country, like CO2 emission, it would be the 5th country in the world. No? So is to understand that it's absolutely impossible not to imagine not to go in the direction of electrical mobility, because this is absolutely the only way to decarbonize really this world. Consider that in Italy, in this moment, the primary energy consumption is 1,800 terawatt hours, only 300 electrical, 1,500 molecular, 50% petrol for mobility, and the other is gas for climatization, industry, and so on. And absolutely the easiest way to decarbonize is mobility, because the electrical vehicle is a reality now. And I think that if in Italy the market share is so little today, it depends from the fact that the price of all the cars, not only electrical, but all the cars, is too high. And we need to be more clear with the politic of incentives and so on, because for consumer it's impossible to understand when is the correct moment to buy the car, in this situation. But if you look Europe, in this moment the market share is 15%. There are some countries, in which the number of electrical cars is huge. The road is signed for me. So I think that we'll arrive to have electrical cars. In Italy, in this moment, the number of charging points is 5 times more than, the relation between electrical cars and infrastructure is 5. So 300,000 electrical cars, 60,000 charging points. So the charging point, once again, is not a problem, is not a bottleneck. If you look at the industrial plan from Enel, B-Charge, A2A, and others, will arrive in 2030 to have 150,000 charging points. And every people that use an electrical car today knows absolutely that the charging of the car is not a bottleneck. So will arrive.
Fantastic. So many thanks to Renato Mazzoncini for his excellent contribution to the debate.
Okay, thanks.